Mark Santiago here, and welcome to the Empowered AF podcast, where each episode we share powerful strategies to help you communicate, act, and lead like an empowered man. Thanks for joining me. All right, guys, Mark Santiago, welcome to Empowered AF. This week, I've got a guest. I feel like I've been doing a lot of guests lately, but all these really cool people have been coming into my life. And I've got with me today, David Pisarra, who is a men's family law attorney based in California. Welcome, David.
Hey, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. It's kind of funny because, in the world that we are in, it's kind of niche, right? Like there's not 100 people doing exactly the same thing. Maybe there's family law attorneys that specialize in men, but I've never met any. And so, and my attorney, he worked with both men and females, and I hadn't really come across anybody like you. So when you reached out to me, it was just kind of a really neat coincidence. I got to be on your podcast. Now you get to be on my podcast. I think this is going to be a valuable session for anybody that is either facing divorce as a man, or you're thinking about filing for divorce even yourself. David's got some really good nuggets of wisdom that he can share from an attorney perspective. Now, again, we obviously have to caveat this and say that David is California licensed and based, so therefore he has to give general advice. So with that said, I know that you guys are probably thinking, what is he going to tell me, all these things? And stay tuned to the end, because we've got a great offer that we want to give you that I think you're going to really benefit from that David has. So David, without further ado, tell me a little bit about your practice, just so we have an understanding of how long you've been doing it. Make sure you're actually legit and you're not full of shit, basically.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been doing this 21 years now. I've had men come into my office and they sit down in my chair and they look at me and they're like, it's over. I want out. What's it going to cost me? How long is it going to take? And I'm like, boom, boom, boom. And the thing with men is they want solutions. They want solutions now. And the problem is, in family court, solutions now don't generally work well.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems, is because we're dealing with family, we're dealing with emotions and kids, and there's all this other stuff. So the answer is that we have to actually go in with a strategy. And that's the real difference between men and women in family court, is women strategize, dude.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I mean, 2 years worth of strategy, like paying off their credit card bills, making sure yours stay high so that when you get divorced, you get stuck with the debt. She may be liable for half that, but it's still on your credit report.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting because I think, like you just said, that perfect point of men want to go in and go just bulldoze everything and go, just tell me what it's going to cost me. How, they don't want to face the pain. They don't want to face any of it. And that's what we see in our programs. We see guys come into our group and all of that, and they're in all this pain. And so they go to a family law attorney and say, okay, let's just get this shit over with. Or she filed. Now what do I do? How do I save my ass? All of these things. But the key thing that I think you said there was long-term strategy, that if you come in with a short-term focus, you're going to be fucked. Like you're literally going to be fucked. And like you said that, tell me about what are some, just real quick, 2 or 3 mistakes you commonly see with men who are coming in with that short-term mindset.
So the number one mistake men make is they go into court thinking that they can just go in, tell the judge their side of the story, and that's going to be good enough. They can go in and be like, I'm a great dad, and get 50% custodial timeshare. It's like, that ain't going to happen. Yeah. The other thing they do is they go to court. They don't get what they want. They haven't talked to a lawyer yet. They haven't even bothered to consult with anybody. They just know what the law is because they saw Boston Legal 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then they're calling me going, I just got screwed in court. Fix it. I'm like, okay, we need to back the truck up here, buddy. You've got to do some thinking about the real picture. One of the problems is men don't think about the whole picture. They think about just what they want, not what the kids need, not what she wants, not what the courts want. So if they can just do a little bit more pre-planning, they'll end up in a much better position.
Yeah. So it goes back to this idea that divorce it's a long-term solution in every sense of the word, right? That divorce is final, or at least in the sense of that particular marriage is over. So when it's filed with the courts and all those things, it is a long process. You don't usually get divorced in a month. I think the minimum I've ever heard is 3 months, and that's with a completely amicable, everybody sat down at the mediation table and it just worked, right? Very few of those happen, but they do sometimes happen. But in the general sense of it, it's a long-term play. Mine took a year to actually get done from front to back, and I didn't even have a ton of assets at the time to divide up. It was just the process of, going through things back and forth. So what you're saying is the guys need to come with the mentality of, this isn't something that might be over in 3 weeks. This is something that might take a while, and I need to be prepared in every sense of the word. So what are the types of things they should be doing to get prepared? Should they talk to a lawyer before they even go to court? Should they talk to a lawyer when they get when they first get that filing? Like when should they even be doing that?
They should totally be talking to a lawyer 6 months before they're even really serious about doing this stuff. Frankly, I think they should talk to a lawyer before they get married, because they don't understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
What kind of premarital planning do most people have? Well, she does all of the party, all of the ceremony, all of the guests. What's his job? Wear a tux, show up semi-sober.
You pay for it.
Not even that. Her dad pays for it.
Yeah, some weddings.
Right. I mean, it's just so they don't know what they don't know to begin with. And then they go in and they try and talk their way through something, and they're just setting themselves up for trouble. So if they could just start going on a little bit more advice, a little bit more direction, a little more actual information beforehand, they'll be much better off.
Got it. So it sounds like when it's because I deal with a lot more on the other side, where guys they receive a filing, or they say my wife is about to file for divorce, or all of those things. And I usually tell them, go talk to an attorney, know what your rights are. What are the kinds of things they should be asking an attorney? Because you're California based, and so the laws there are going to be different from Idaho or Kentucky or Arizona or whatever. But what are the kinds of things they should be looking for when they're going to hire a family law attorney?
The laws are going to be different everywhere, but the issues are going to be the same.
Right.
We've got kids, we got property, we got money. And all of that you have to go and talk to a lawyer about and lay out for them. These are the big issues in our relationship. Some people have a lot of property and no kids. Some people have a lot of kids and no property.
Yeah.
That actually seems to be the way that works usually. Yeah. So if you can go in, and one of the things I have is a checklist for guys to go in and be like, these are the issues, this is what I've got, so that you can go in and tell a lawyer exactly what you have, so that you can cut right to the chase.
Yeah.
A lot of times guys are like, well, we got married 20 years ago, we went on our first date. I'm like, I don't care. I need to know there's a beach. I don't need to know every grain of sand.
Right. So something guys toss around all the time. And again, I don't give legal advice. I just tell them, hey, you might want to consult a lawyer about this, but it sounds like a bad idea. And so I want to hear your thoughts on this. And I don't want to paint you in a corner. So if you go, hey, that's a legal thing I can't talk about, then you tell me that.
No worries.
But here's what I hear a lot is, especially from guys who are successful in business or who make a lot of money, what they will do is go, oh, I think she's going to file for divorce. So they start putting money in other places and they start trying to hide money. Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
Okay. It is a bad idea to hide money.
Okay.
It is not a bad idea to shelter money.
Ooh. Can you speak to that? That sounds really interesting.
Yes, I can. Because here's what's going to happen. If she's starting to think about divorce, she's paying off her credit card bills. So she's going to have all that available for an emergency. And the other thing she's doing is she's going and she's shopping and she's putting something on a debit card or a credit card and then returning it for cash. She's stockpiling cash. And so what I'm saying for men is you need to do that same thing, but in a legal way. Okay. You need to create a separate account that has community property, if you're in a community property state, that's in it, but you have access to it.
Okay.
Because a lot of guys call me and they're like, I just got kicked out of my house. You cleaned out the bank accounts. I'm living in my truck.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, I've heard that story a lot because you were just being a good guy, putting everything into the joint account, and she just cleaned out the joint account. Like in a community property state, if you have a separate bank account, that'll be community property, even if it's in just your name.
Yep.
But at least you'll have access to it.
Yep. So I see what you're saying. So basically, don't hide the money so that the court doesn't know you have $15,000 in a separate account, but shelter it so that you have access to it while you're going through this process so that you don't get screwed, essentially.
Exactly. I mean, I've seen cases where like the day before she files, she maxes out the $150,000 line of credit on the house.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like, whoa, there's a nice little war chest she just created.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's community debt in theory.
Right. So you both owe it, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Which really means you owe it because you're the only one who's working, who's paying everything.
Right. Right. Very interesting. I want to switch a little bit to something that we come across a lot, and that is the idea of restraining orders. That seems to be like the new norm now, where women are using restraining orders against men to throw them out of their house, whatever. And we work with guys like that who sometimes have been tossed, and now they're like, you know what, I'm just going to work on myself, and they come into our VIP program. But this is happening a lot. What are the issues that, you know, number one, what to look out for maybe before it happens, and number two, if it happens, what do you do, and how do you respond?
Well, number one, men have to understand what domestic violence is in today's world. It is no longer the day of I hit her. We are no longer in the day of O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson, and he kills her. We're no longer in the world of, oh, I just pushed her up against a wall and the court's going to look the other way.
Right.
We are in the world in California, and this is going to go across the nation. Every state's going to have this inside of a year. Coercive control. And coercive control in a couple is literally this. Mark works, Mark brings home a paycheck, Mark puts his paycheck into a joint account and pays all the bills out of it, but doesn't give her the password to the joint account. So he's in control of what bills get paid, when they get paid, how they get paid.
Yep.
She has to put up with you because you're in charge of her. We are literally at the level of, if you raise your voice, that's threatening, it's anger, it's harassment, it's terrorizing, it's domestic violence. So the big message for guys that I have is like, you don't think you're abusive, and I get that because you're used to locker rooms where it's like, I'll yell the fuck out of you, and then we're going to go out in the field and play.
Right.
And we're going to be fine, and afterwards we're going for beer and burgers. You cannot do that with a woman. You cannot do that with your kids. It's a completely different world. So that's
no
one.
Kicking tires. You can't like kick her tire when she's leaving you, or throw something at the wall.
None of that, huh? None of that.
Yeah.
So that's one, is they've got to understand what domestic violence really is. And the world has gone from like this narrow definition to like this huge wide, you can fly a plane through it, to now you've been hit with a restraining order. What do you do? First up, follow that thing to the absolute letter. Do not contact her. Do not communicate in any way unless it's allowed in the restraining order, and then only on what it's allowed about. So if you're allowed to talk to her about like when you can see the kids, great. Anything else, off limits, don't do it.
Got it.
Because the minute you violate that order, you're a dead duck. You're just dead. Like literally going to jail dead. Like I had a guy who literally went to jail for text messages with the ex.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bad. You got to really follow those.
What if she initiates the text messages?
So here's what happened.
Because we get those too.
She initiates the text message. They start talking. They go back and forth, maybe 15, 20, 30, 50 text messages back and forth. She gets mad at him because he's not giving her enough money. She goes in and deletes her side of the conversation. Then takes screenshots. And what does that do? It looks like there's 50 text messages in a row from him. That's the screenshot that gets submitted to the judge. The judge, all they have to do is look at that and be like, you're abusing her. You're harassing her. 30 days in jail.
Wow. Even though there's evidence somewhere else.
No, there isn't, because what did he do? What most men do. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I can't take this conversation. Delete the whole thing. Didn't take screenshots.
Idiot.
Right. On the one hand, I want to say idiot, and I agree with you. On the other, it's what men do. Yeah. And because they don't know that they're going to need that in their divorce case, in their domestic violence case.
So basically, document everything.
100%. Everything, all emails, text messages, voice messages, you got to save everything.
Yeah. I was a big proponent I really did not have much face-to-face conversations with my ex during the divorce. Now we do, because it's amicable now that, you know, we have co-parenting time and all those things. But during the divorce, I literally was either email or text. So that way I could document everything, screenshot everything because of the abuse and all that stuff. So sounds like that's the thing that we're going, hey, if you're in this case, you need to document everything. You need to be careful about how you respond to her, or if you even respond, especially if there are some sort of injunction against you.
Totally. You know, there's great tools out there. There's Our Friendly Wizard for $9 a month, and they have scholarships for low-income people. There's Talking Parents. And the beauty of those programs is when you email back and forth with each other, they're now archived. They can't be changed.
Got it.
Same thing with the text messages. They run through that system. They can't be changed.
Yeah.
Had he done that, he wouldn't have gone to jail.
Yeah, totally. So it sounds like there's a mindset, and that mindset is this shit's serious, and like you can't just fuck around with it. You know, you talked about long-term strategy. You talked about, you know, the idea of being smart ahead of time and all of that. But what about the guys who are just in denial? Like, how do we like slap them around a little bit and go, dude, she just filed. You need to get your ass up and do something. Like, what would you say to a guy who's more not like, he just doesn't know what to do? He's paralysis of analysis. Maybe he's talked to 2 or 3 attorneys, but he hasn't really done anything. And maybe he's thinking of just giving her everything away, especially the guys that feel guilty and feel like maybe they weren't the best husbands. I've seen that a million times. So like, what would you say to a guy like that?
The hardest part is reaching them and getting them to see that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And because so frequently, if we actually go back to the domestic violence thing, they're actually the domestic violence victim.
Mm.
They're most likely the victim in a coercive, controlled relationship.
Yeah.
And we have to wake them up to that fact, which they don't want to hear because I'm a guy and I can't possibly be a victim because I'm a man. Right. So that's just not the way that game is played. We have to get through to them that there's something beyond the Prince Charming White Knight version of reality. Mm. They have to start seeing that you have a role in this. You have to be in control of your life. You have to start taking action and not just giving in to her wishes because they lived by happy wife, happy life.
Bullshit.
Well, guess what? Not so much.
Yeah. That is one of our...
Part of that is that they have to recognize that they have their own agency. They have their own power.
Yeah.
And they have to take it back.
Yeah. I mean, that's all the stuff that we teach in our program. VIP programs focused on specifically communication boundaries. So like what you're talking about with, you know, not becoming abusive, not becoming coercive, those are absolute principles of what we do in our 30-day challenge as well as in our VIP program. And so if you're listening and you're hearing that, dude, you need to go check that out. It's www.empoweredman.co/challenge, www.empoweredman.co/challenge. So I want to switch gears a little bit. And I know that you just launched something that I thought was incredibly useful to men. And really, honestly, I was surprised at the price point. To me, it was like, wow, dude, like you're giving a ton of value to these guys for like a small investment. And I appreciate that as somebody who works with guys at all levels, you know, financial, you know, we get men who come into our, you know, into our what we call our atmosphere, our whatever, right? You know, Facebook group, our podcast, whatever. And not all of them have 10,000 to put down on a retainer for a lawyer, right? But they still need at least some basic advice to get going in that process, right? And they'll figure out some of the other things, right? Not every lawyer is the same, right? Just because you put a 10K a retainer there doesn't mean the guy with the 4K isn't that good. You know, like it's all relative, right? But I think you've created something that's valuable for men. So let's talk about this action pack. Tell me what, like a little bit about what it is and why you created it. And then we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, the Dad's Action Pack is designed for fathers who are trying to get more or 50% custody of their children. You know, these are guys that they're great dads. They just don't know how to communicate their great dads to the court. So what we've done is created a system for an hour-and-a-half course where they can learn how to communicate to a judge, how to talk to a judge, how to present yourself in court, how to present yourself on paper. Because that's the big one that a lot of guys don't recognize is like, those papers you're submitting, that's the first impression the judge has of you.
Yeah.
They're going to get a lot out of how well is it done? What are you putting in there? What are you communicating? So I've created a system for a $97, which because of your audience, but it gets better.
That's not even that's like a half hour of your time, 20 minutes of your time. You know what I mean? Like,
if I tell you what it really is in my time, you'll just die. So I'm not going to go there.
Like 10 minutes.
Close. It's close. What I've done is created a system, and for $97 for most people, but for your audience, I'm giving them a 30% off discount if they use the coupon code EMPOWERED.
Wow.
So it's $27 off. We're down to like $70.
Dang. Dude, that's incredible. So basically, if I'm a dad facing divorce, facing separation, whatever, I'm in that legal situation where kids are going to be moved from home to home, and I haven't either taken legal representation, or maybe I have, but I'm not fully prepared to present myself to a judge, fully prepared to do all those things. This action pack is going to help me get prepared for that. Is that correct?
That's exactly what it is. It's designed to give you a way to focus on your relationship with your kids, how to develop what that really means, and how to share that with your attorney and a judge. Because if you've got an attorney, they need to know this information so they can put it in the paper so the judge can see who you really are as a person.
Wow, that's awesome. So we've got two websites that I want to direct you guys to: mensfamilylaw.com. That's David's main website. And then we have mensfamilylawcenter.com/action-pack. So it's mensfamilylawcenter.com/action-pack. If you are watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to the Apple Podcast or Spotify, there should be some notes below, and those links will actually be there so you can go check it out. And as David said, because you're a listener of the Empowered AF podcast, as well as part of our community, you just put in EMPOWERED in the coupon code, automatically save 30%. So there you are, down to like $67. So if you are facing divorce and you have kids, let's just put it that way. If you're facing divorce, you have kids, you need to go right now, go buy the action pack, get that thing. It's only an hour and a half's worth of content, but within that hour and a half, you're not gonna be sitting there for like 10 hours in some long drawn out thing. In that hour and a half, you're gonna be prepared, you're gonna know what you need to know, and you're gonna be able to start taking action on those things. Hence, it's called Action Pack, correct?
Right. And it's actually 13 lessons. So they're broken up videos.
Oh, perfect.
So you don't have to do it all in one sitting. Perfect. You can do half in the morning over coffee and half at night over dinner.
Yep. And if you're like I was when all of this was happening, I mean, I was constantly on law sites. I was constantly on YouTube. I'm looking for all of these things. And what you've done is just taken it and put it together in one nice little package for really any guy that's facing this can afford that. If you can't, well, I don't know how you're going to even get divorced without losing your shit. Essentially, you need to go get a second job, go do what you got to do to make it work. So, David, is there any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
I just want to tell guys they're not alone. You know, that's one of the things is they have this sense like they're the only one going through it. And each year there's about 2 million divorces and about 2 to 3 million paternity cases over child custody. So we're looking 4 to 5 million men a year are facing this. Man. Don't think you're alone. Find the support, get the programs you need to do the job you need to do.
That's awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for sharing today. We appreciate it. And guys, like I said, mensfamilylaw.com and mensfamilylawcenter.com/action pack. Go get that action pack and join our 30-day challenge. And I think both of those together are going to be instrumental in your change and transformation. So thank you, David. Hey, if what you heard today really resonated with you and you want to connect with me, then here's what I want you to do. Pull out your phone right now and go to empoweredman.co/group. That's empoweredman.co, not com.co/group. So you can join our free Facebook group and connect with me there. We also have a ton of free content and trainings in that group to help you when you join. So until then, this is Mark signing off on Empowered AF.